So being on the CCP, it's kind of interesting as the city chief. So I'm the one city person, and then there's 6 others from the county. And Bob had mentioned, and Jennifer did too, about the system approach, because sometimes discussions would be talking about it, and they talk about the team and the departments. And I'm like, hello, I'm here. I'm kind of representing the other cities within Sonoma County. So when the state, through a lot of encouragement from the Cal chief, said, municipal agencies need some funding, because in our county, I think the CCP allotted about $50,000 for local law enforcement to deal with some of the issues that we're having with realignment. So when this money came, it was like, okay, how do we want to use this? Like Bob mentioned very early with the CCP, we have a wonderful opportunity with this realignment money. Let's not blow it. It's really within our power and authority. Let's use these dollars the best way possible. And that was kind of the spirit that we looked at with the city funding. So the governor's budget initially said, let's give some money to municipalities. And then the counties, those contract cities, they said, well, wait a minute, what about us? So a little bit more money was added. So the guidelines that we got from the Board of State and Community Corrections was kind of patterned after what Cal Chiefs wanted, and they used an allocation formula similar to what the CCPs received. So some counties got more than other counties. Our first year was $171K. So how do we want to use that? The intent of the funding was supposed to be used regionally, and that was a big issue for us. And to me, when they started talking about making a safe community, I didn't want to look at it just as the city of Santa Rosa is my community. No, we're looking at Sonoma County as our community. So I'm not going to read each of the intents of the funding, but basically we all wanted to play well in the sandbox, and that sandbox being the entire Sonoma County. So we had a meeting, and I also either was elected or volunteered. Somehow we got to be the fiscal agent, which is kind of an interesting position to be in when there is a little bit of authority there that here's the rules that we want to use to receive this funding, but everyone's got to play by those same set of rules. We don't want any rogue cities taking these funding and doing things that we don't think will maximize the potential of these dollars. So when we had that first meeting, we actually invited the probation chief, Bob was there, and as was the sheriff. Now, they weren't going to be getting any of this funding, but I thought it was really important to understand systematically how do we want to use these fundings, because if the CCP or the sheriff's office or probation is doing their little thing, shouldn't we be consistent with it? And so we came up with this operation flow chart. In the first part, that intelligence piece, I think is a little bit different from other counties. We have from local law enforcement, we do some things in our little way. We're kind of stuck in our ways. And quite frankly, we did some knucklehead things early on by maybe not targeting those offenders most likely to reoffend, but the most serious crimes, which in some levels that might make sense. But in talking with probation and understanding they have this risk assessment tool, why don't we target those folks that are most likely to reoffend versus the most serious crime? And again, there was a little bit of a learning curve, and again, we had some bumps on the road, but eventually once we all agreed to this methodology, it really made things a lot smoother. So once we gathered the intelligence, we made it real easy. So any municipality who wanted to take a lead on this operation, you've got to go through probation first. We don't target our offenders by ourselves. The pool of potential targets that we are going to try to make sure they're either complying with their probation or other terms their other terms and conditions, we want to hold them accountable for that. But the names that we get come from probation in their risk assessment tool. Once we get that, then we start looking at the county as a whole. Okay, who wants to come with this operation? And so typically, well, let me go a little bit more about the eligible list of offenders, because I think that's a big point too. It's just not the realignment offenders. So with working with probation and the other chiefs, we're interested, where are the gaps in the system? Bob's folks are supervising high-risk offenders. Okay, we don't need to duplicate their efforts, along with the sheriff's office, and actually in our county we have a CHP also on part of that team. Where are the gaps in the system? Those are part of that eligible list of offenders. So we throw in persons on felony probation, and all these are high risk to reoffend. Habitual felony offenders with outstanding warrants, PRCS persons with outstanding warrants, and then those 1170H folks without any tails but are in our community. We thought that was an important population to make sure that they are complying with the laws of the land, because right now there is no supervision whatsoever. So let's make sure that they're doing what they should be doing. So preliminary results is kind of interesting. When I went to my city council, my city manager, how do we gauge the effectiveness of this operation? Is it when you actually make the arrest, which means someone's not complying with the terms of probation? It's a fascinating discussion, especially like if you're a public defender's office, someone who's on probation for burglary, my officers arrest them for drunk in public, Did they just recidivate? You know, it's a big discussion that we're having. So actually what I'm telling my people is that it's both sides of it. Those that are in compliance is a success, and quite frankly, the arrests are also a success because we're holding people accountable in Sonoma County. And we've had, so far to date, probably I think 4 of these, and we've got like 6 to 8 of the 9 departments participating. The interagency collaboration has been phenomenal. And so what we're hoping to be able to do is spread the word the way the systematic approach we've done with the CCP works throughout the municipal agencies throughout Sonoma County. Thanks.